So we got a handout, and I'm definitely excited to talk about the ABCs of closing the sale. So there's a fun movie from the 1900s called Glengarry Glen Ross. It's previous to any sales movie that's out there, but it's pretty classic movie, and it's got a lot of famous actors in it. And Alec Baldwin is one that talks about A, always, B, B, C, closing. So that's where kind of the ABC came from, always be closing. But I'm going to talk about three concepts surrounding the idea of closing the sale. Thinking about what Nick talked about. Nick was about dropping down, right? Is everyone with me on that? Dropping down. And it's funny, today I taught that on not that exact talk, obviously, but talked about dropping down today on Champs Club in our division. And dropping down, he gave some great nuts and bolts about dropping down. And a lot of that is straight out of the manual, straight out of what you learn in training. Some of it there was some extra words, phrases, and things which I loved. Nick really delivered the goods. Today, what I'm going to talk about, there's going to be some nuts and bolts, but a lot of today is going to be about philosophy, right? And Kyle, I'm good for what's my timing? Just to clarify. Sorry to make you unmute. Caught you unguarded. Okay.
4:45.
4:45. Okay, cool. So I've got an hour and 13 minutes. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so all right, hour and 17 minutes. Okay, good. So that's my time zone. So let's get into the three main concepts, three parts of closing the sale. Or really, while that was nuts and bolts with Nick, this is going to be more philosophy on closing the sale. So let's start off with A. A is attitude. Your attitude about closing the sale. And again, you want to open the handout if nothing else. Closing, and I think it was brought up, someone put this in the chat box, closing is something you do with or for your customers, not to them, right? Again, it's right in the handout, which I'll show you in a second, but closing is something you do with your customers. It's a process that you do together. And you find essentially the process, as it says on the handout, process of closing is really just finding where the value and the price meet, where the customer decides to place an order for a set of Cutco today, right? That's the goal, is to find the right place. Maybe it's the homemaker, maybe it's the signature set, it might be 3 knives, right? But the process of closing and your attitude about it should be that it's something you're doing together. Finding that, think about how many times you've seen, or maybe you've done this, gone to a car lot, and the salesperson isn't just helping you like buy a car, he test drives 2, 3, 4, 5 cars with you. And then you sit down and talk about numbers and you think about it. Maybe you go look at a different vehicle, and it's a process that takes more than 5 minutes, right? Closing the sale with Cutco, again, cars are depreciating assets. They're things that you're going to waste money on, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars in your life, cars, and they do serve a purpose, but there's a process to even getting something that's not going to last, right? Cutco is going to last forever. So, Cutco, as it says in your handout, is both a good and a service. If you guys know the study of economics, who's ever taken an econ class in college or high school? Econ, right? The definition of the word economics is the study of the exchange of goods and services, right? The exchange of goods and services. That is what economics is. And so Cutco is a good, because they get something in the package, right? They get it, the UPS shows up, and there's a good in the package, but then there's a service that lasts well beyond your career with Cutco. Kyle's been here 20 years almost, or I think it's over 20 years, right, Kyle? I've been here almost 28 years this year. And Cutco is going to last longer than I've lasted, or I will last at Cutco, right? Cutco's been going on for 73 years. So they have a service when they buy from you today, Tanner, on your demo you have after the conference, they're buying a service, right? Not just something that comes in a package, but UPS. So closing is really a service. That's the next thing on the handout, right? The next thing on the handout is that closing is a service. So you should do it good or well. Okay, you should do it good, but I just want to leave the word good in there. See if anyone's paying attention in the English class. So Cutco's a good and a service. So you should think about it, William, that closing the sale with your customer, that process of finding the right value and price, think of it as a service. So you should do your job right. Think about it this way. If you were working at a food service, let's call it McDonald's, I don't care, a burger place, okay? And if you took a box for a burger and you threw a hamburger patty and some lettuce in the box and gave it to the customer, and they're like, what the, are you kidding me? Like, you'd be like, what? It's a hamburger. You ordered a hamburger, here's a hamburger. That's not doing your job. Who agrees that would be a terrible job on the part of the employee of that company, right? That if you were to not close the sale the right way, it's very similar to not, if you don't drop down or if you don't close the sale properly, it's like throwing a hamburger and some lettuce in a hamburger box and handing it to a customer and expect them to be happy. So isn't that a silly thought? How many of you guys think that's a silly thought? So you got to think about closing. It's your job, but it's not your job to like make them buy. It's your job to find, what does it say in the second line? The right value and the right price where it matches, and they decide to place an order for a set of Cutco today. And sometimes that takes a little longer or shorter, or different things need to be said or done with each customer, right? So Cutco is awesome. I think everyone knows that. I've sold $500,000 or $650,000 worth of it. And just last night I sold 470. Yeah, customer that bought from me in December, Preston, called me up. She's like, yeah, I got your text, because I sent out a text to all my customers this week. And I have another customer who's buying some more knives from me later today. I just got off the mountain, by the way, just was snowboarding with Jake Miser and Parker Greavy, 2 division managers from the Midwest region. So I was just snowboarding with them just now. And, while I was on the lift, my customer texted me saying, hey, I got your text. I want to buy some more knives. And she just bought from me last fall as well. So if you're not keeping in touch with your customers, right, you want to do that because it's free money. Okay. But Cutco is awesome. How many of you have had your customers receive their knives? 1 or 20 or 200 customers have received their stuff. How do they act when they see you again? Dude, they're so fired up. They're like, I love my knives. They're like, thank you so much. I cut myself. How many of you guys have had, raise your hand if you've had your customers brag about their knives? Like, I cut myself, it stitches. And you're like, oh, no, that's awesome. What's a knife supposed to do? A knife is supposed to cut, and they're not used to that. And so, yeah, you're going to have, it's like getting fresh tires on a car. Sometimes you forget you used to drive on Baldies, but now you got really good tires, and things are different, right? When you get a new car, get a new set of tires or anything, or a new cell phone, right? So, anyways, Cutco is awesome. And you got to remember that when you're closing the sale with your next customer. Okay, Tanner, like, what your customers that have already gotten their knives, how they feel about them. I want you to remember, you can write this down in the handout, is remember the vision of your customers getting their Cutco, and put that into, put it into the universe, or into the universe of your customers, and how they're going to feel when they get their Cutco. I used to say this, Charlie. I used to say, Miss Jones, you're going to love it when you get it. Now, that's not in the manual, but how many of you guys feel like that's going to offend anybody? That there's no way that offends anybody. You'd be like, Ms. Jones, when you get it, you're going to flip out. You're absolutely going to freak out. And you know what the people in the freaking clothing store say to you? Oh my gosh, your butt looks so nice. I'm just kidding. They may or may not say that to you. I don't know why that wouldn't happen. But, the point whether they shouldn't say it, or maybe, I don't know what's true, what's not true. But shouldn't the salesperson in the jeans store tell you your butt is looking amazing in those jeans? I think she should say that. I think they should say that, right? And you know what? You can do something that's way less offensive and tell them they're going to love their knives on their counter. Okay, maybe potentially offensive. I don't know. Maybe it's not offensive. Okay, so money. Let's talk about money for a second. Money is a means of exchange, right? It's just a means of exchange. When someone gets money, the only purpose money has is to be spent, right? Money is just a medium or a means of exchange, a medium or a means of exchange, right? That's what money is. And there's so much of it right now, right? They just stuck 40% of the all US currency ever, right? That means Cutco got cheaper. Okay, just so you know. People are naturally hesitant. Raise your hand if you're one of these people. You're naturally hesitant to spend money. Raise your hand. I want you to show me your hands. Okay, everyone loves to spend money. I'm sorry, let me switch that. You're hesitant to spend money. Now raise your other hand if you actually love buying stuff. It's both. You're hesitant and you love buying stuff. So if customers are hesitant to spend money, that means we should not focus on money. We should focus on value, because people love buying stuff. Raise your hand again if you love buying stuff. If you love it and you don't even have it, like moms and dads that own homes and have kids, I always say that weirdly. So people that own kids and have homes, sometimes I say it backwards, but anyways, they own homes and have kids, right? When they own homes and have kids, they have a lot more money than a college student has, right? Or a single person or whatever you want to say, right? And so they're hesitant to spend money, but they love to buy stuff. And if college kids can feel that way, let me promise you, adults that own homes and have kids, they love buying stuff way more than you do. And they've done it for years. So when the value outweighs the price, that's the next sentence, right? When the value outweighs the price, it's a done deal, right? They will buy. The job is for you to make the value outweighs the price. So people always buy. That's the blank. People always buy when the value, it doesn't matter what it is. You could talk about addiction. Like literally, I'm addicted to video games. I'm not, by the way. But if someone's addicted to video games, how many of you guys have seen people just blow tons of cash on video games? Every time something comes out, they're blowing their paychecks on it. They work at a snowboard shop just so they can buy every single snowboard accessory they can possibly buy. Sorry, we have mountains out here. It's on my mind, right? But no matter what it is, they work at a guitar shop because they want to just buy. They literally drop their paycheck at their store. How many of you guys know people that, or how many of you have ever worked at a place where you just wanted the discount? Right? And you didn't even care what you got paid. You spent your paycheck, right? So customers, when the value outweighs the price, they'll buy every single time. We just want to build the value for them. And the thing I want to remind you is, in the next line is, we sell Cutco today and the customer benefits forever, right? So I've got a virtual background of the Sandlot for Zoom, but I won't put it up right now, okay? But you guys remember Squints in the movie, the Sandlot. And the words forever, right? They literally benefit longer than you're alive, longer than they're alive. Cutco will last longer than their husband. Just remember that. The Cutco will last longer than their husband. Cutco lasts longer, and then they pass away, and their grandkids get Cutco for free. And it's funny and silly to joke about it, but it's so awesome that we market a product like that. You know how many iPhones are not like that? And they drop $1,000 on those. How many guitars are not like that? They're not going to last forever. Right? Cars, everything. Stuff that you guys buy. Textbooks certainly don't last forever. Okay, Cutco lasts forever. All right, I got two ways to easily sell more Cutco. Number one is to see prospects. Let me go back to that value statement. When you show middle-aged married homeowners, you're automatically set up for value. You're automatically set up for value. It doesn't matter how good or bad your demo is, they already see a value in the product. So if you just show middle-aged married homeowners, you're good. And the other thing is, you got to do a great demo. That's the next line there, next blank is do a great demo, and you'll always sell Cutco. The third blank, which isn't included, is go to Champs Club. I'll just throw that in there. Go to Champs Club. You're going to learn how to sell more Cutco. All right. So that's all under the idea of attitude with Cutco. B is belief. B is belief. Okay. So we got attitude is A, B is belief. Your conviction gives them conviction. So you want to show a ton of conviction to give your customers conviction. That's kind of the idea of painting the picture or giving them vision of what their Cutco is going to see, feel like, look like, on their table, on their counter, right? And, here's a question I got for you, okay, Carson, is would you buy from you? The way you act when you're closing the sale, dropping down anything past page 8 in your manual. Anything past page 8, the selling part is page 1 through 8. But anything past page 8, if you start wigging out and getting silly or nervous, Abby, and you're like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know. I don't want to be pushy. All right, William, if you're acting like, in your mind, even if it's in your mind, if you're thinking, am I doing it right? You're thinking about yourself. You got to think, would you buy from you? And you got to show conviction where if you would buy from you, Mariah, then it makes sense for them to buy from you, right? Because if you're thinking at all in your mind that you're like lying, being dishonest or anything, or if you're just self-conscious about closing the sale, it's really hard for them to catch your conviction. So you got to remember, you should want to buy from you. That's how good of a demo you want to do. So body language, if you're doing an online Zoom in-person type of demo, right? Body language matters, but if you subtract body language from the equation, you've got tonality, volume, enthusiasm, you've got pitch, variance, getting faster, getting slower, talking higher, talking lower, right? You got to, vary up your tonality, and then the words themselves, right? The words that you say, which are in the manual, that really does communicate conviction. Use questions is number 2. Use questions when you're closing the sale. Without going into all the details, there's a whole workshop you could run on questions, but yes or no questions, right? Do you like to cook? Well, actually, I'll get to that in a second. What type of cooking do you do? That's open-ended. Let me just, open-ended questions is when you just let the customer blab. A lot of that's about rapport, but I like to ask questions like, do you do any outdoor stuff? Do you hunt? Do you fish? Do you garden? Do you barbecue? Like, that's all stuff that has to do with Cutco, right? Is everyone with me on that? So I always ask the open-ended questions that will kind of let me know they don't hunt, they don't fish, but they do garden. And I'm going to remember that for later. So something you can do in your open-ended questions and rapport building is find needs that they will have, right? And that helps you possibly figure out better free stuff for the customer or better stuff that they would add to the order. Alternate questions like blocks or trays, table knives or steak knives, classic, pearl, or red. We used to not have red, right? But pearl or classic. And then crystallizing questions. That's just like a yes question. Miss Jones, that's comfortable, isn't it? Ooh, that looks good, doesn't it? Do you think that looks, and asking where you ask a question where it's almost always a yes question. It's not like you have to say a yes question, but in many cases it is, okay? To keep the time going. I want to talk about name dropping. Number 3 there, name dropping. I love name dropping in 3 ways. 1, telling someone a story about a knife that you have an aunt who loves the chef's knife. In fact, the lady who's buying from me after this meeting, her son-in-law wants the chef's knife really, 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 really bad. Right. So I could tell a story that, I just sold a chef's knife to a lady who, her son-in-law really, the one Cutco knife that he really, really wanted that they didn't have was the chef's knife. And that makes the chef's knife more impressive, more exciting, and someone else wants it besides the salesperson. You guys with me on that? Like, besides the salesperson liking the chef's knife, there's a story about someone who loves the chef's knife. So if you have specific knives that your mom, your grandma, or anybody likes, you should totally tell that story in your demo. Because then who's selling it? Well, someone they've never met, but someone that matters, right? And then you go in the close, right? When someone doesn't get the homemaker, raise your hand if you ever had someone not buy a homemaker. Raise your hand. Okay. So, but they bought a galley. Raise your hand if you sold a galley. All right. Raise your hand if you sold a starter set. Every time you show that set from now on, you can say, let me show you the set that my Aunt Nancy liked. Let me show you this set, the Studio Plus 4, that Phil just sold last night to his customer who bought in December as well. That's what happened to me, right? So last night, next time I talk about the studio set, I'm going to say, yeah, you know what? Susie, I can't remember her last name now, Paddock. Susie Paddock just bought this set the other night, right? And so that's an example of sharing someone else that bought the studio set or whatever, right? And then for recommendations. Mrs. Jones, my aunt said the same thing about recommendations, but then she used the app and it was easier. Or Mrs. Jones, my aunt gave me 34 recommendations. It would totally help me out if you could beat my record. Or Susie down the street, she gave me 9 just yesterday. If you could beat her, maybe I could hook you up with a little extra free stuff, and just using an example of someone else giving more recommendations or whatever. Okay, C, we got A, B, C, right? So C is closing the sale. Closing the sale or concluding the sale. And Nick just gave you a bunch on this, so I'm going to rip through the dropping down part. Closing the sale, confidence in the close. I'm going to tell you, in the old days we used to memorize page 8 and 9. I'm going to go ahead and say you might want to do that. Memorize page 8 and 9, because what happens right there, Tanner, is you're going to come across with more conviction. And that's the C pretty much in closing the sale, right? Conviction. So I wrote down, are you a liar? And that means in your mind, do you believe in what you're selling? You got to make sure you believe in it. They're looking for your belief or conviction. You can go ahead and put that down on the next page. Your conviction or your belief. They're looking for that more than ever. When you're in the point where you're selling a galley set, Preston, when you're at the point, Carson, where you're almost selling a studio set, that's the exact moment they need to see your conviction. Silence is key. When you're asking for the order, ask for the order, pide la venta, y después cállate. Shut up, right? Don't say anything. Ask for the order, and then just don't say anything. Let them think about it. Let them talk. It's not that whoever talks first loses or anything like that. I hate when people say that. It's they need the time to think, and they need the time to talk it out. So don't say anything after you ask for the order. And then the next blank is all the selling has already taken place. All the selling is already done. It's happened. Your job is to find the right value price. So when you're dropping down, you're closing the sale. The selling is taking place. 19 million people aren't stupid, for crying out loud, right? Is it 18, 19, 20 some million people that bought Cutco, right? The next set is best for them. You can jot it down. The next set is better for them when you're dropping down. Nick covered this. the next payment plan or the next like list. The next payment plan or the next like list is better for them that right then there, right? In other words, you want to be excited about the next option, right? Too much money means too much for that option right now. It's not too much money for Cutco. By the way, guys, the same lady who says she can't afford to buy 5 knives, immediately when you're done with your demo, gets in her car and goes to the Costco and spends $500 at Costco for muffins and cereal, half of which gets wasted, right? Kid, how many of you guys ever had that muffins and they don't even, right? So they spend $500 at Costco. Your job is to help them buy something that's going to last. Okay. Use bonus points. Use bonus points, right? You got to learn that if you're not a master of bonus points, then it's harder for you to give the right deal. Objections show interest. Objections show interest. So when they say things like, oh, I don't know if I can afford it, I got to talk to my husband. That's actually not a bad thing. If they're like, actually, we're robots. You couldn't tell, but we're actually cyborgs. We don't even eat food. See, that would be a hard one to come up, with an answer to. You guys get that? Right? We're Martians. We actually, feed on nitrogen from the air. We don't need food. Like, that'd be really weird if you were selling to Martians. But if they're humans, they eat, right? How many of you guys have done demos for humans? Raise your hand. All right, well, then it's easy to sell Cutco because objections show interest. So again, Uncle Nicky covered this. Listen is point number 1. Listen to the objection, repeat the objection, show empathy, right? Show empathy. Oh, I understand how you feel. Right? A lot of people have felt that way. Present a solution. Here's something we found, the 5 payment plan, blah, blah, blah. And then what is number 5? AFTO, baby. Ask for the order. Ask for the order. After you present a new solution, this is exactly what Nick covered, right? Nick covered it, so I don't need to talk about it, right? Ask for the order is whenever you're in doubt, that's probably like where there's that one moment. Raise your hand real quick. I'll finish up here in a second, where you've had a moment where like the customer's right about to buy. Show me, just put your finger on your nose if you've had that moment where they're right about to buy. Right there, your finger's on your nose. Lindsay, come on, you've had it happen, right? Okay, so you've had it happen. And if you've had that happen and you're like not sure what to do, it's actually a really easy thing to say, so why don't we go ahead and do it? Or why don't we go ahead and get it? Ask for it like you're asking for the time. Uncle Nicky said it, right? The last blank is to firm up the sale. Mrs. Jones, you are going to love your set. Don't think you got lucky selling. Stop thinking that way. You did not get lucky. Customers buy stuff all the time that is not guaranteed forever. That's not Cutco. Your job is to firm up the sale and say, Ms. Jones, you made this wise decision today. You're going to love it and use it for the rest of your life. They're going to buy it once, use it every day, and it never goes out of style and never wears out. And if it does, they get a new one for free. That's an amazing product. I don't care what it is. Guys, close the sale. Don't put the hamburger patty and the lettuce in the box, right? Do your job the right way. Find the right set for the right customer. All right. Thank you very much.